Welcome back to Daytime Ottawa. You know that lifestyle is so incredibly important. We talk about it all the time on this show, but there's so many different ways to look at it. My next guest looks at it in a very unique way, and that comes when it comes to what we're putting in our bodies is so incredibly important, and we forget how important it is, and that's why you should see somebody like my next guest. I'm joined by Susan Alsembach. She is a nutritionist. Welcome to the show, Susan. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having
and you've
me.
had a journey from nursing to nutrition. Tell me about that journey and why the change.
So I've always really been interested in sort of health and biology and the human body, how it works. So I trained as a nurse. I love doing it. And about 10 years ago, my daughter was starting to get iller. We couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. Being a nurse, we went through all the medical procedures to not really have any answers. So in the end, I decided, well, I was being told she'll grow out of it. And I thought, well, no, it was something more than that. So I decided to go and see a naturopath. And we went through everything, and we started looking at foods that she was eating. And when we eliminated certain things, suddenly she was feeling much better. So it just gave me a whole new perspective on food and what it can do for us.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are starting to look at, naturopathic medicine very seriously, and not taking away from, medicine that we have today and the science behind it and so forth. But I think even more family physicians are starting to respect it and working with the naturopathic world. How do you work with your clients? What are some of the main focuses you work with your clients?
So a lot of my focus is getting to know them, getting to know their stories, where they've been, any health concerns, any health history that I should be aware of. And that's where I really enjoy my work, because now I get to combine my nursing background with the nutrition aspect of things. So it's looking at any stresses in their life, their patterns, their routines. Are they preparing food? Is it just for one? Is it for a family? Is it for an elder parent too? Because these are all factors that come into play, right? When you're looking at your food and how you prep it, when you eat it. And people don't necessarily just stop to think about that, right?
Yeah, it's like mindful eating, I guess, right? We've talked about it on the show before, and I think we tend to treat food sometimes as just fuel. Oh, I have to eat because, I'm supposed to eat three meals a day. How important is it to make sure, we get away from the fast foods and we get away from the prepackaged? I mean, there's a lot of things in those, we have no idea the effect it has on our health.
For sure, there definitely is. I really come from the perspective that you can't, taking everything away that we are used to. So if a client comes to me and they do eat a lot of processed foods, or that's part of their routine, telling them to start with to get rid of everything isn't going to work. They're just too used to it. So it's bringing it in and kind of looking at an 80-20 rule. Meaning that 80% of the time, if you're eating well, if you're eating your fruits, vegetables, meat, grains, anything that you really like that's food, you can then allow yourself to have 20% that would be maybe what is perceived on social media and things like that as bad food. So the fast food, the processed foods, and having that combination just takes all the pressure off people.
Yeah, with the assessment, you described your daughter and, removing things out of their diet, and I think it's easier, well, maybe I'm wrong here. I was going to say maybe it's easier with young people, but that may not be the case. I'm just thinking as an adult, we're not very well disciplined in doing things like that. So how do you help, convince people to go through that process? Because for some, I don't think it's a very easy process, is it?
It isn't, and that's where I love my work, because it's that conversation. It's talking to people and finding out why they want to do it and what information do they have, and then building on that. So that whenever I work with people, it is really what they need and not what the client that came to me beforehand needs. Because everybody has different lifestyles, right? Different rhythms, different stresses. So making food work for them in that way instead of against them is the easiest way to go about it.
Some of the common reasons, gut health, for instance, if somebody comes to you with, oh, I'm cramping all the time, or I'm feeling, like I've eaten cement and I feel full all the time. How do you work with somebody like that? What's some of the common things that they're probably doing wrong?
Often it's eating often. Sounds silly, because there was a lot of media news, I'd say about 7-8 years ago, that we ought to be eating little and often, when in fact now we're actually taking a step back from that and realizing that for our gut to work properly, kind of needs times in the day where it has a time off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So that it can kind of do its housework, its cleaning, as well as digesting the food that we give it.
Weight loss, I was going to mention, is another one I'm sure that people come to you with, and I think we get the wrong idea because there's so much information available and not all the information is good. How do you work with somebody that is looking to lose weight? Because I imagine it's more of a lifestyle that you're working with, right?
It's a lifestyle and it's an understanding of food.
Okay.
So one of the big things that I find is important with my clients is helping them understand the different food groups, not taking anything out 100%. Sometimes it's reducing, so things like starches, looking at breads, grains, pasta. Often people want to eliminate them completely when in fact they serve a really important role in our diet. So it's getting people to understand that you can still have them in your diet, but maybe at different times of the day, maybe less than we're used to. For example, if you think of a pasta dish here or a pasta dish in Italy.
Oh my goodness.
Pasta
So
here,
true.
it'll be the main component of the meal. Whereas if you go to Italy or Europe in general, your pasta's there, but there's maybe lots of roasted vegetables with it. There's olive oil, there's parmesan, cheese, there's olives, there's so many other things to it. So then there's less guilt. You get rid of all of that as you start understanding, okay, I can still eat pasta, but I'll combine it with other things. Right.
Yeah, I don't have to have an overflowing North American bowl. Well, I mean, it's true, right? You go to a restaurant, I think you're just looking at it going, like, I can't eat this. And then you shouldn't be surprised that you leave that place and you just feel terrible.
You feel bloated, you feel heavy because, as you were saying, mindful eating, it's the term is definitely there. And I would say it's just being aware of your body's cues. We all know when we've eaten too much, right? We've all had that sensation. So why do we do it?
And read it ahead of time, right? And before we get to that, Susan, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. We brought up the website, by the way, susanalsembach.com to find out more information, how you can work directly with Susan. We'll be right back after this.